Just so you know, this show is about scary stuff. So don't say I didn't warn you guys. And remember, don't be scared.
Episode 79. Brutal. Hammer Killings.
War Baby here with another episode of Murderous Minors.
This week on Murderous Minors, we look at 3 true crime cases connected by nothing at all but the killer's weapon of choice, the everyday hammer. We've covered similar cases in the past, including the 2011 Port St. Lucie, Florida hammer killings of Blake and Mary Jo Hadley by their son Tyler, who rose to infamy by throwing a party and taking one last selfie as his parents' dead bodies lay behind closed doors. Back in 1998, small-town Noble in southern Illinois was about to experience a reckoning. Their age of innocence was over. The village of less than 900 residents lived that oft-heard-about existence with truck keys left tucked in the sun visor and doors left unlocked should a friend or neighbor decide to pop in. With one convenience store and one coffee shop in town, everyone knew everyone, that is, until they didn't. With the new millennia cresting the horizon, even the area around Noble was beginning to expand, with plans for a big box retailer's distribution center as well as a new prison in the works. These job opportunities brought an influx of younger people to a community which was normally made up of the retiree set. Christopher Churchill was native to Noble, Illinois, where he was born in 1981. He lived there with his mother, ultimately dropping out of high school after ditching too much and being transferred to the optional education school in a nearby town. As we'll learn, his life was tumultuous around this time, and he only lasted for 8 days in the fall of 1997. His family recalled an intellectual introvert with an interest in poetry, while his peers remembered him more as a creepy loner, even displaying antisocial behavior in the past. Though quiet at school, he did entangle himself with the law on at least one occasion, as he did have a juvenile record. Part of the problem could have been the arrival of Chris's 17-year-old half-brother Jonathan Lloyd in Noble from Texas. He had been living there with foster parents, but now chose to live with his biological mother and half-brother together as a family. In all honesty, Jonathan was much more mature than Chris, even though they were close in age. It was widely reported that for a time, their mother had worked at a factory packaging VCRs, and that there she met 35-year-old mother of 3, Deborah Smith. A native of Marseilles, Illinois, Deborah had recently moved to Noble after separating from her husband in nearby Olney. In October of 1997, Deborah, her daughter aged 12, and her 2 sons aged 10 and 6, lived with her former co-worker and her 2 sons in their home, and it seems that in a very short time, Deborah, 35, and Jonathan, 17 years old, had fallen in love. According to published reports, Deborah enjoyed an amicable relationship with her ex-husband, and he and his girlfriend even spent time with the couple and the children all together. By this time, Deborah and Jonathan had moved out of his mother's house and into their own home nearby, where his younger brother Chris would often hang out. Such was the case on February 8, 1998, when after a trip to Walmart as a foursome plus the kids, Deborah and her new boyfriend Jonathan, plus her ex-husband and his new girlfriend, Chris Churchill, stopped by his brother's house. According to statements from Deborah's ex-husband, he had bought their oldest son a bicycle during that shopping trip, while he reported that Jonathan had bought Deborah an engagement ring. Although no longer together, the parents were still friends and still parents to their kids with all their hearts, and everyone there was simply looking to be happy. One person in this family who was not happy was 16-year-old Chris Churchill. The arrival of his older brother only highlighted his own shortcomings, and though he regularly spent time with him, inside he quietly seethed. Chris had internal rage and thought about murdering his brother all throughout 1997 and even before. Following that trip to Walmart, Deborah and Jonathan came home to find Chris waiting on their return, and he came inside to spend the evening. Following dinner, the brothers, Deborah and her 12-year-old daughter, played a few hands of cards, and Chris later recalled being lightly teased. He kept losing and getting giggled at, and his emotions began to smolder. He stayed up and got drunk after the rest of the household went to bed. As he grew more and more intoxicated, the more the anger inside him grew, ultimately reaching proportions he could no longer confine. Chris would later tell police that he wanted to harness that anger and aim it at Jonathan as a means to relieve stress. His next actions are sinister and heinous. The drunk teenager found a hammer in the kitchen and used it to violently murder Deborah's 2 young sons. Chris struck each boy in the head 5 times before leaving them to die as he went to watch TV. Having spent time with the family, he was familiar with their routines, so when Deborah's daughter got up first to get her brothers up for school, Chris blindsided her. After striking her repeatedly with the hammer, he went to his brother's room and he did the same to him and his girlfriend. Chris would later describe how he went back to Deborah's daughter, who lay close to death, and raped her. Noise from his brother's bedroom drew him back to make sure his deadly task was complete, after which he returned to the girl. Chris would later admit to sexually molesting the bodies of her brothers as well. As far as Deborah and the kids went, Chris would later admit that their death served a dual purpose. One being revenge for their earlier taunts, and the second being because they'd suspect him should anything happen to Jonathan. When asked why he would commit such violent and heinous acts toward the children, he told police that he, quote, just felt like being sick, and sick he truly was. Once the 5 occupants of the home were dead, he took a shower, made himself a meal, and watched more TV before taking almost $900 from his brother's wallet along with cigarettes, alcohol, other items, and then leaving the scene. Over the course of the next week, no alarm bells were raised in regards to the family's whereabouts. Since they were new to the area and Deborah had been laid off, no neighbors or co-workers came looking for them. Someone who did stop by the house was Chris, and he did so several times as the bodies of the 5 people he bludgeoned to death were still inside. All the while, he was openly spending the money he stole from his brother at every chance he got. Eventually, a friend asked where all this cash came from, and he casually confessed to killing Jonathan, Deborah, and the children. The more he thought about it, the more the comments bothered him, and the friend contacted local authorities, reporting what could have been the first murders in Noble, Illinois in recent memory. 16-year-old Christopher Churchill was quickly picked up and had no issue with giving investigators a play-by-play account of his disgusting deeds. He referenced his negative, pent-up emotions and his desire to kill as a means of stress relief. Jonathan Lloyd, Deborah Smith, and her 3 young children were found on February 13, 1998, and Christopher was arrested that same day. The teen was looking at a potential life sentence. When he went to trial a year later, the defense attempted to convince the jury that the teen could not have done this on his own, and instead was covering for a group of unnamed friends. This premise directly contradicted the recorded confessions made by police, wherein Chris admitted to wanting to kill his brother for some time. Those confession videos were played in court and marked one of the few times the teen showed emotion, covering his ears as his vile words were repeated. Blood matching Deborah Smith's was found on one of Chris's shirts, offering the state's most compelling evidence in this murder case, which was the prosecutor's very first. Although he'd washed his Marilyn Manson t-shirt, trace amounts of Deborah's blood remained in the seam of a sleeve, helping to seal his fate, and he was found guilty in April of 1999. A few weeks later, the teen was handed 2 consecutive life sentences, 3 concurrent life sentences, and an additional 50 years for the sexual crimes. This was 1999, so listeners of this show know what the Supreme Court had in store for the juvenile justice system. Once Miller v. Alabama made mandatory life without parole sentences for juveniles unconstitutional, Chris Churchill was suddenly looking at the possibility of a one-day second chance. In 2014, Deborah's former husband and the father of the slain children took to Change.org, starting a petition rallying against Illinois' decision to resentence juvenile lifers, decrying the unraveling of the delicate sense of justice they'd had in the 15 years since his trial. There was some talk of seeking a new sentence as well as a few hearings. However, Christopher Churchill, who will be 39 in 2020, remains incarcerated, serving multiple life sentences at Menard Correctional Center in Menard, Illinois. The father of Jennifer, Corey, and Kenneth Smith maintains a Facebook page in memory of his deceased family called Keep Chris Churchill in Prison. For now, he is. This episode is brought to you by Best Fiends. With less than a week until Halloween, it's a great time to be knee-deep in the fall spirit. After the summer we've just had, I'll take any and every distraction I can get to keep my moods light, and for me, that means popping in frequently to play Best Fiends. Crushing levels is a great way to clear my mind during the workday, and watching my favorite bugs blast their way through the map in Halloween costumes only makes it more fun. I like to play outside while enjoying the cooler temperatures and before bed to help me relax and clear my mind. You can enjoy literally anywhere. You don't need an internet connection or Wi-Fi to play, and new levels, events, and challenges just keep on coming. With over 100 million downloads and millions of 5-star reviews, there's no more popular and entertaining way to get in on the spooky spirit this Halloween than with your favorite creepy characters. Download Best Fiends free today on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends. The hammer continued to appear as a weapon of choice as the 2000s dawned. Years later, the suburb of Bedford, Texas was rocked by the disappearance of 14-year-old Kaytlynn Grace Cargill, who left her apartment to take her dog for a walk and never returned. Over time, we would find out that on June 19, 2017, that wasn't the only reason she was out. Kaytlynn Cargill lived at Oak Creek Apartments with her family, enjoying summer break just like anyone would expect of a teenager in June. Bedford, Texas is a suburb located between Dallas and Fort Worth with a population at the time of just under 50,000. Born in January of 2003, the sporty teen was what we'd call an everyday girl. A student at Central Junior High School, Kaytlynn loved animals and exploring and played the trumpet in the band. The details of Kaytlynn's disappearance were sketchy at first, and Bedford police immediately received negative feedback from the community for not having issued an Amber Alert for the young girl. However, they maintained that her disappearance did not meet the criteria. According to the arrest warrant, it was around 8:15 p.m. on Monday, June 19, 2017, that Kaytlynn's mom called police, saying she had gone to walk the dog and never come back. Police indicated that they were dispatched to a call for a possible runaway, leaving them feeling that Kaytlynn wasn't in danger and they never suspected foul play. Her mother told responding officers that Kaytlynn had left to walk the dog, and when she went to look for them, all she was able to find was the dog tied to the fence at the dog park area of their apartment complex. Her daughter and her daughter's cell phone were nowhere to be found. The following day, June 20th, investigators